Greetings and salutations, my friends. My name is Travis, aka Dad, and welcome to Dad Does Tech. And I'm just an ordinary dad who loves tech and camera stuff, and my goal is to help you find the right gear and get the most out of it. And today is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. It is about 10:45 as I'm recording this right now in the morning, and I just wanted to wish you all happy Thanksgiving, and I wanted to go ahead and share some Black Friday deals for you. If you're in the market for a new camera, your first camera, or an advanced upgrade camera, whatever it is, I'm going to go over some cameras and maybe some lenses that are on sale for Black Friday this week, and that is today, tomorrow, and probably even through the weekend. They've made a big deal about trying to make it safe for shopping, and as long as there's inventory in stock, the sales should still be live. So most of the sales we're going to talk about today are across B&H, Adorama, and Amazon. So if it's on one, it's probably on the other or something similar on the other. So if you can't find it in stock on one, check the other. But what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a list of things that I've pinpointed as options that I think are fairly good deals. Some are a bit better than others, and some are just good cameras. The deals may not be the best, but you know, they're good cameras. So we're going to go through and I'm going to pick some of my favorites, and I'll try not to make this too long, but it's probably going to be a pretty lengthy video just because I'm not going to go in and edit this too much. It's just going to be a straight through. We're going to talk about the things that are on sale and would be good buys if you're into video creating or photography. And then I'll just leave it at that, and I'll try and timestamp everything down in the description once this thing goes up. But we will go from there because it is probably going to be a pretty lengthy video. I tried to do this in a live stream 3 times yesterday, and my internet speed just failed me, and then my audio failed me. So we're going to do a recording of it. It's a bummer that I can't interact with you live, but if you have questions or if you find deals that I don't talk about today in the video, if you find deals that I don't talk about, mention them down in the comments, and I'll try and do my best to interact with you as much as I can over the course of the next couple days as these deals are still hopefully live. It is Thanksgiving, so I will be spending a lot of that time with my family, and that's the way it should be. So happy Thanksgiving once again. Let's get started. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started with what I think is one of my favorite deals. And I'm going to segment these kind of into a budget category, into a more advanced category. I'm going to put budget, anything under $1,000, and anything over $1,000 in the more advanced category. Now, that doesn't mean that an advanced camera can't be in the budget category, because some of them are on sale and you may be able to get an advanced camera in that budget realm. That's just how I'm going to separate them right now. I realize $1,000 is still a lot of money, but I needed to find some level of division, so that's how we're going to do it. So the first one that we're going to talk about is probably one of my favorite deals. And let me flip over to my screen capture here so we can show you what's going on. So first things first, the Canon M6 Mark II. This is one of my favorite cameras that I don't own and wish I did. I have an M50. Actually, that's what I'm shooting on right now. I've never done a recording like this style with the M50, so this is new for me as well. But yeah, so the M6 is kind of a good upgrade zone from the M50. If you have the SL2, the SL3, the M50, and you're in the Canon camera system, or if you are looking for a first camera and you want to skip like that low budget and you have a little bit more in your availability as far as funds, the M6 is a great place to be, because it's not a real basic camera. It does a lot of things. It's a crop sensor camera, and right now you can get it for $799 for the body or $899 with the kit lens. And honestly, the kit lens is pretty darn good. I think it's the same as the M50 here, so let me grab it. So this is the kit lens. It's uber small. I mean, if you know how small the 50mm is, it's barely larger than this 50mm prime, which is crazy. And it's a zoom. It's 15 to 45, and it's f3.5 to f6.3. So not the best aperture, but it's a pretty quality lens given its size and affordability. So if you wanted to get a camera and you were like, man, I need a camera, but I need a lens, $100 more to get the Canon M6 Mark II is a pretty sweet deal. It shoots 4K video I believe up to 30 frames per second. Let's jump in here and see if we can see that information for sure. But I believe it's 4K 30. And it has the EVF, but what makes this camera unique in that sense is that the EVF is detachable. So it kind of looks a little goofy when it's attached to the top here, but you can remove it and have it off if you just want to use your screen as your viewfinder, or you can attach it to it. And normally the EVF costs a lot of money to add on, but this actually comes with the EVF. So you'll have that detachable EVF included in this bundle here with the lens. This camera also flips up with a great screen for vlogging. That's another reason to take off the EVF, is that it would block this screen, but if you take it off, it won't do that. But this is a great camera for vlogging because of it, because it's so small. It doesn't have any hump or anything up here because of the EVF blocking this screen, and the screen flips up instead of out or down. If it flips down, then it can be blocked by the tripod. If it flips out, then you're kind of looking off to the side, like I am right now on this M50. See, my eyes kind of trail off to the side. But when it flips up, that's a different story. So for vlogging, it's a great camera. 4K, 30 frames, just like I thought. And full HD, I believe 120 frames. So you get that super slow motion. Continuous shooting up to 14 frames per second with autofocus with IF, or the eye tracking autofocus from Canon. Digic 8 processor, which is the newer one that was in the new Canon M50 Mark II that's coming out really soon. It's been in a lot of cameras, including the Canon EOS RP. So even their full frames are running that. So it's a good processor. 32 megapixels, which is awesome, especially on a crop sensor. The nice thing about 32 megapixels is that if you're just getting started, or even if you're not, if you let's say you messed up your composition, right? You messed up your framing. If you're shooting stills, if you're somebody who shoots stills, your 32 megapixels is going to give you more room to play with as far as your resolution goes in cropping in on your photos to get the framing that you wanted. So it's a great camera. I really like it a lot. And normally with a lens, it's like $1,100 or $1,200. So right now you're saving at least $300 to get the lens. I'm not sure what the additional price range is when you normally add the EVF, but you're going to save at least $300 on this, and it's worth it. It's really worth it. It's got the dual pixel autofocus. I really think you'll like it. And at $899, or even if you have lenses already that you're fine with and you just want to get the body at $799, that's a great price. I mean, that's like $100 more than normally what the M50 is. So you'd be saving a ton of money on a normal day. But the M50 is on sale right now for the kit. You actually can get it for $549, which I believe the normal price for the body is $549. So you're basically getting your kit lens for free here. That's the next camera we're going to talk about right now anyway, since it's budget friendly. And I think they've got a kit here with two lenses for $749. So now you can get your telephoto zoom and your more wide angle with your 15mm and then your 55 to 250. That's pretty awesome. Or 55 to 200, I'm sorry. And these are M mount lenses, so these are native to this, so you don't need an adapter or anything. But the nice thing about the Canon M50 and the M6 is there's an EF adapter, and if you're somebody getting started in this kind of thing, the nice thing about Canon is with those adapters, you get all the autofocus and abilities typically with the EF lenses, even on the EF or the RF mount or the M mount using the adapter, which is pretty great. And there is tons of EF glass, tons of it. You can get it new, old, used from different manufacturers, third parties, and some of it's pretty fantastic. And if you want to spend a pretty penny, look at the Sigma line. The Sigma Art series is glass that is second to none in that category as far as like a budget category. And it's still expensive, don't get me wrong, it's still expensive. You're going to pay $500, $600, $800, $900 for it, but you're not going to spend $2,000, $3,000 on it. It's going to be a third of the price of like Canon L glass. So the Sigma Art glass, by the way, is on sale, and that was something we'll talk about a little later. But if you're watching this right now and you're like, hey, I need some glass for my cameras, check out the Sigma glass. You can check it out on B8H or Amazon right now, and it is all on sale. not every lens, but I know that the 35 millimeter, the 50 millimeter, and I think the 85 millimeter, all of those are on sale and for 150, 200 bucks off. Even the classic 18 to 35 lens, which actually is, now that I think about it, that's what I'm shooting on right now. And if you like the way this looks, the 18 to 35 from Sigma is fantastic. What is going on? So, sorry about that noise. I don't know what that was. Anyway, yeah, Sigma 18 to 35, great lens, 1.8 aperture, super soft, blurry background here, but it's super sharp. Great lens, and it's on sale for I think 150 bucks or so off. Let's check that right now, just for funsies. Sigma 18 to 35. Okay, yeah. So it's only about 50 bucks off. So, but you can get it for right now for $679 for Canon or for Nikon. And look at that. This comes with a bag. You get a SD card, a little tripod, a wrist grip, cleaning kit, you know, lens cases and cleaners. This is a pretty sweet deal for $679. I mean, that's less than what you'd normally pay for just the lens. So that's pretty sweet. Or you can just get it right here for if you just don't want a whole bunch of extras for whatever reason that you want. I mean, I wouldn't pay more for all the extras, but when you're literally talking the same price for the lens or the lens with a bunch of extras, might as well just take all the free stuff, right? So that is a good option there. All right, let's jump back into cameras real quick. Let's hit the back button and get into the next one. So we talked about the M6 and the M50. Great deals happening there. And I believe the M50, if you're looking for just the body here, it's also on sale. So we had the $549 for the kit, and for the body only, looks like the black one's out of stock currently here, but it doesn't look like it's in stock here. Let's check over on B&H real quick. Let's see, $549 for the kit. Where's the body? $529. Okay, so it's only a $30 difference or $20 difference. Might as well get a lens for 20 bucks. That's the deal right there. Come on, let's go. All right. And look at this. Here's a creator kit for $5.99. So another $50 gets you an SD card and a microphone along with that from Rode. So that's a pretty good deal. I would consider this one if you're doing video instead of stills. Otherwise, just go for this guy or the M6 if you're a Canon shooter. The SL3, if you want a DSLR, is on sale as well. But the Canon SL3, in my opinion, it's a great camera. Don't get me wrong. It's an absolutely great camera, and I like it a lot. I have the SL2 myself. I wouldn't recommend the SL3 at a price of $599 with a kit lens when you can get the M50, because there's nothing that this thing does so much better. I mean, the M50 has 24 frames per second video shooting. This one doesn't. You are going to get better battery life out of something like this because it uses the LP17 batteries, I believe, versus the LP12. So E12s. So you're going to get better battery life out of this. It does have a more comfortable grip and all that, but you know, it does. I think it has eye tracking for the autofocus, but outside of that, I don't think it has anything else. And the M50, even though it doesn't have the eye tracking on the original, it will on the second one. Even though it doesn't have it, the autofocus is still good, and it does other things better, and it's smaller, and it's, at this moment, cheaper. And this looks like it's used, so I don't even know what the new price is. But point being, I would skip this one if you're in the market for a Canon system. And now let's move on to Fuji. Now Fuji, I'm going to preface this with, I'm not a Fuji shooter, but we can look at the specs together and go from there. But the Fuji X-E3 is, whoops, the one we're going to look at right now. Fuji X-E3. Body right now, I believe, is pretty darn cheap, if I'm not mistaken. So you can get the kit lens. This isn't even a kit lens. This is a prime. So a 23mm prime or it looks like the kit lens. Both are $799. That's a pretty fair price. I don't think this camera, I wouldn't choose this camera over the M6 for $100 more. I think the M6 is probably the better camera, but that's just me. But this is still a great camera, especially if you're interested in Fuji, that you can get this camera. I think the body though is much cheaper. Let's check that real quick though. Yeah, okay. So now here, this is worth taking a look at. $499 for any mirrorless camera at all is a pretty good price. And so if you're not willing to pay the extra $300 to get the kit lens or that 23mm, $499 on the other hand, that's worth taking a look at because you're going to get a lot of camera. It's interchangeable lenses, so you can pick up some glass elsewhere, a different lens, see if you can find one on sale that you're interested in for that price. However, so I really like what Fuji's doing. Like I said, I don't have one and I've never been a Fuji shooter, so this is the one I know the least about as far as personal usage. That doesn't mean that I know nothing about it, but as far as personal experience with these are the cameras that I'll have the least experience with. But I really like what I've been reading and seeing people produce using Fuji cameras. And because of that, I think it's worth taking a look at. For $499, you're getting a camera. How many megapixels is this thing? Let's take a look. 24 megapixels, so it's right in line with the M50. It's crop sensor. So, 8 frames per second as far as continuous shooting. You're not going to get the same kind of performance as you would for like the M6, which gets 14, which is a lot. I mean, a lot. And but I think this has 4K. It does. It has 4K frames, 4K at 29 frames per second, 30 frames per second. So you're getting 4K video, 1080p video on a camera for $499. So if you're interested in the Fuji system and you have no camera yet and you're not married to a system or you're open to change, this is a good option right here for entering into a system. However, the one thing to think about with Fuji, and this is not a knock against Fuji themselves or anything, it's not their fault, but Fuji will have less third-party lens options to choose from. So when you think about like the just plethora of lenses that you can choose from with the Canon EF glass that's been around forever and has tons of third-party cheap, both used and new options, there's going to be less to choose from Fuji. So you may end up spending more on lenses because of that, or at least for good lenses. But just something to think about. Not a knock against Fuji at all. All right, and the next thing is, let's take a look at this guy. Another Fuji. We'll take a look on B&H because B&H does a better job of sharing the specs. What is that I'm doing? All right, so we've got the Fuji XT-200. Great camera. $499 again, but not with just the body. This is like your entry-level camera right here, the XT-200. You're going to get a lens, a case, and an SD card. Everything you need to actually go out and start shooting today, right in this second. $300 off right now for $499. That's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. 24 megapixels, so it's going to be the same as the XE3 as well as the M50. Crop, 1.5 crop factor, so very similar there. Let's see, I believe 8 frames per second. So there's really doesn't seem to be a lot so far. 4K 30 as well. Yep. 1080p 60. Right now I'm not seeing a ton of difference between the XT-200 here and the XE3. So I would be interested if somebody knows what that is. Specs wise, just at a glance here, they look very similar. But this looks like the bargain deal right here. If you're, maybe one's newer and has a slightly better autofocus system with like firmware updates and stuff, I'm not really sure. But on paper, they look pretty similar right now. So if you're a Fuji shooter and you know the difference right off the top of your head, go ahead and drop it down in the comments below. I'd be interested to hear what the difference is between these two cameras, because both of them look pretty darn good and at a great price. Finally, well, let's move on to the Fuji X-T3 or X-T30. we're going to get to the XT3. That's later. Some Fuji XT-30. All right. So normally this camera, now we're getting up there in price with the Fuji cameras. Normally it's a little bit more expensive, but right now you can get it for $899. So this is going to be around the same price as the M6. And it stacks up pretty favorably as well. So if you're more interested in Fuji, then this is basically their equivalent. I don't know if it has a flip out screen though. I'm not sure. Do we know? Fuji XT-30. See if we can get a better picture here to find out if this thing has it. So it's $799 for the body. Okay, so it kind of flips out, not like kind of at an angle. It angles. It doesn't actually fully articulate in any direction. So this is kind of similar to the way the older Sonys and stuff have been doing it. So good camera though. It's a good camera, and it comes with a lens, SD card, case, cleaning kit, at least on B&H. $899, $799 for the body. 26 megapixels, so you're getting slightly more than the megapixel department. And I believe it does 4K video pretty well. 4K 30 internal. It's got 1080p, but at, I believe, what they're trying to say here is 120 frames per second. So you get that super good slow motion for the video shooters, and it has f-log. So you're going to get to be able to shoot in the more flat profiles internally, which is pretty awesome. So that means you're going to get more information and be able to color grade your footage more before it starts to fall apart and get all grainy and gross. So yeah, this could be a good option. Even the M6 Mark II, I don't believe has, no, it doesn't have C-Log, I don't think. So I'm pretty sure it doesn't. So this one has a leg up in that department. Other than that, I would still take the M6 with the great autofocus capabilities that it has. And I just, in general, love that camera with the flip up screen versus the screen that doesn't fully articulate in any direction. But as far as the C-Log stuff goes, or F-Log goes, that's pretty great. That's great. All right. All right. Sorry if you can hear my cat. She is pawing at the door like crazy right now. So let's move on to the next one, which is the Nikon Z50. And this one is the only real Nikon, I think, on my list at all. And that is not because I don't like Nikon. It's because I don't think that the cameras that they chose are all that great for sales, and I don't think the sale prices are all that great. So Nikon Z50 we got for the same price roughly as the M6 and the XT-30 that we just looked at. And it's $896, and you get a kit lens and an SD card, and the specs are very, very similar. So this one does have a flip down screen. So if you're interested in an articulating screen, honestly, when you're talking about the XT-30, the Z50 here, and the M6, this one's got 120 frames in 1080p. There's really not a ton of differences, not a ton. And they both, all three of them are going to perform similarly, and they're going to perform well. So I'm not going to say that one is better than the other, or that you should go with one over the other. I think it also depends on what you're shooting. Like this one has slightly less megapixels at 20, so it's going to have less forgiving crop in when your ability to crop in on your photos if you're shooting stills, versus the Canon, which has 32 megapixels. So I mean, there's little differences like that. Each one does something slightly better than the other. Oops, sorry, I hit the microphone here. But if you have questions about a specific type of thing that you're trying to use it for, let me know, and I can maybe help steer you in the direction of where I think that would be. But once again, it's just my opinion anyway. So yeah, 11 FPS shooting on this one. Very similar. I think we had 8 or 10 on the Fuji, and on the Canon, I think we had 14. So the Canon does have a little bit of leg up, I think, for stills because of that. But once again, you have the detachable EVF. If you're not into that, then, you know, there's just pros and cons to both. So just keep that all in mind as you look for a new camera. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump into the more expensive cameras in the group. We're up here at the $800 and $899 prices numbers. So now we're going to jump into the advanced group, which is the $1,000 group and up. So let's start with what I think is probably the best. If you're looking for a budget value in a full frame camera, this is probably the one I would pick. The Canon EOS RP. Right now it is $400 off. You're going to be able to get a fully articulating screen. You're going to get a full frame camera and a lens for $1,000. And that's just a crazy good deal. That's just a lot of value. Now, it is a better stills camera than it is video camera. Video does kind of feel more like a bonus, but it's still a great camera. Now, the one thing I would say about this camera is that it's not great for sports photography or if you're trying to do continuous shooting really fast. So if you're trying to get a lot of moving things that are moving really quickly, the Canon EOS RP is probably not your best pick. It's a little bit on the slow side. It'll get the job done, but it's going to be a less enjoyable experience for continuous shooting. That being said, it has a lot of other really great things about it. It is 26 megapixels. It has the Digic 8 processor, which is the newer one that we saw in the M6 Mark II. So it's going to have great performances in that regard. 4K video, I believe up to 30 frames per second as well. And it's a good camera. It's just a darn good camera. And you're going to get an RF lens with it, which is nice because the RF glass is so new and very expensive. So the fact that you can get not only into full frame, but into Canon's new mount system that they're going to be building out for the foreseeable future. Like this is their mount of the future. The fact that you're able to get into that system with a native lens is pretty awesome. And if you want to mount your EF glass, you can do that. I mean, that's what's cool about it is if you have EF and EFS mount glass, you can get the EF to RF adapter, and there's multiple different versions of that, and you can mount those lenses no problem. But the adapters are really great because there's one to just mount the lenses. There's some that have like ND filters and filter trays that you can drop in. Other ones that have control rings that you can actually map the ring on the adapter to change different functions on your camera, like ISO or aperture or whatever. So that's all pretty cool. So yeah, consider this one, and it does have, oh, does this say 5-axis dual sensing IS? I don't know what that is. It's not in-body image stabilization, so I don't know if that's like the way they're calling it for their digital stabilization, but that's a little misleading in my opinion. It does not have in-body image stabilization, but it's a great camera for a great price right now. So if you want to sneak into a full frame, if you're coming from a crop and you want to come into full frame, definitely check this one out. It's pretty great. Similarly, the Canon EOS R is on sale. If we're going to talk about the RP, we should probably talk about the R. The R is the camera that's sitting right back here for me, right here in the frame. It's one of my main cameras, and it's the one I use pretty much the most often for my YouTube videos. Obviously, I'm not using it for this one, but it's one of my favorite cameras, and it's one of my favorite cameras that I've ever used. And it got a lot of flack, and rightfully so in a lot of regards. It should have had IBIS, it didn't. And the 4K has a crop of 1.6, I believe, and so it basically becomes a crop sensor camera when you put it in 4K for video. And a lot of people hate that. I, on the other hand, have found it to be extremely useful because it allows me to take my lenses and get extra distance out of them. You know, it's free distance for me. So no loss of quality. I'm just getting more range on a lot of my lenses. And so it's only a problem if you're trying to shoot on a super wide angle lens and you want 4K video. That's the only time that's an issue. Otherwise, it's actually helpful. So it's just whoever is using it in whatever circumstances. But right now you can get it on B&H or Amazon or Adorama. Adorama's over here. I'm kind of only looking between these two right now, but these sales are typically available on Adorama as well. But you can get the body with a bag, with your SD card and cleaning kit for $15.99. I believe last year on Black Friday it was $17.99 on sale, and it was $2,000, I think, new and at full price, and then it was like $17.99. This year we're dropping another $200. It's because likely because of the new R6 and R5 cameras that have just come out, which are almost impossible to get your hands on anyway. So you might as well just settle for something like this, unless you want to wait months and months and months and spend a lot more money. But because for the price, if you bought 2 of these right now, you could essentially buy 2 of these and still pay less than an R5, or just pay a little bit more than an R6. So great camera. It's got C-Log to shoot your video, so you can get all that extra data. It shoots 8-bit, not 10-bit, but the 8-bit still looks really great. It does shoot 10-bit externally, but only 8-bit internally. So yes, that is that. Alrighty, so let's take a look on what is next on the list. We've talked about the Canons. The Canon 6D Mark II is on sale as well for $12.99. I'm going to mention it because it could be a good camera for somebody, but it's essentially spec-wise very similar to the RP. You're going to get better battery life, and you're going to get more frames per second as far as shooting stills. So if you're somebody who shoots stills and you were considering the RP, the 6D Mark II might be your better choice. It doesn't shoot 4K video, and in the video department it's just not as good, and all the autofocus points are clumped in the middle, and that makes it, you don't have the edge-to-edge tap-to-focus in the same way that you would on the RP. But as long as, if you're shooting primarily stills, the 6D is still a really good camera. But for $300 more just for the body, I still think the RP is a better value. So that's just my thoughts there, but we won't get into it any further than that. The 5D Mark IV, that'll be the last Canon camera I talk about. The 5D Mark IV is on sale for $22.99, and the 5D Mark IV, if you see someone who's shooting wedding photography, or, you know, just about anything, if they're a Canon shooter and they're a pro, they probably are either using the 1DX or they're using the 5D Mark IV. And it's probably the 5D Mark IV. It's a really great camera. It does a lot of things super well, great battery life. It's on sale for a few $100 off right now, $200 it looks like. $22.99, I think that's a great price for it. And it's around the similar price as the new R6. If you're shooting video, obviously I think the R6 is, in general, I think buying new tech is a little bit better, but it's got way more megapixels than the R6. So if you're somebody who's strictly shooting stills, the 5D Mark IV has still got a lot of life in it. If you don't mind a DSLR and an OVF versus an EVF, the viewfinder, for those who were not following that, this is a great camera, and it's still got a ton of life in it, and I think it's worth highly recommending still. All right, moving on. The Fuji, that's right, we're heading back into Fuji realm. The X-T3, come on, let's go. This camera, it's a beast. It's a beast. And what you're getting, I mean, look at this. This is a holiday savings of $502. Normally over $1,900. You're getting a lens, the body. You're getting an SD card. I don't know why it's showing a battery. Of course, it should include a battery, unless that's supposed to be an extra battery or something. But this camera is awesome. It's a great camera. As far as Fuji's concerned, there's a lot of great cameras in the budget spectrum. But if you're investing, if you're willing to go up to this kind of price, there's only a couple cameras that I think that are currently sitting in these sale markets for the $1,200 to $1,400 range that I think are just steals. And this is one of them. But this is a steal, in my opinion. It's, let's get down into the specs so I can make sure that I get it all right. So it's 26 megapixels and everything, but it shoots, it's got, its bit depth is 14-bit, which is great. Continuous shooting, 11 frames per second. And it's got multiple modes of 4K shooting and 2K shooting here. And you're going to get 10-bit 422 with the H.265 codec that it can shoot in. So it can shoot in 8-bit, at the H.264 codec or the H.265 codec natively. That's freaking awesome. And it can shoot 422 10-bit in external recording, which is all really great. And so these are numbers and these are specs that you'd expect to see on the Canons and Sonys in the well above 2000s. And you're getting it at a much cheaper price right now. So this is one I would definitely consider looking at. Let me see if it, is it phase detection? What is the autofocus system on Fuji? I can't remember. I think. Yeah, phase detection. So, yeah, that's good. It's all good. Definitely take a look at this guy. So it is an APS-C crop, it looks like. I thought it was full frame. It is not. But it's still an amazing camera. And especially if you're using it for video instead of stills. But it's still great stills camera as well. So I'm going to show the comparable to this, I think, on the Panasonic market. And if I were to say next to, I think if in the advanced camera section, the RP is the best budget value steel, I think super low price to get into full frame, this would be my next choice. And this is if you've got a little extra cash, but right now the price on this, $12.97. Holy cow. The GH5 it's a staple as far as video stuff goes. If you shoot weddings, if you shoot events with for video, it's micro four thirds, but the Panasonic GH5 is an incredible camera. It has tons of features, and at $12.97, I don't know, what is that, $700 off? Yeah, $700 off. This has, let's go down into some of these specs because they're pretty nuts in my opinion. So you do have to get past it. It's micro four thirds, so you're getting that smaller sensor, but it's got all these different 4K modes, and it shoots I believe, does it shoot in H.265? Doesn't look like it, but it shoots 8-bit and 10-bit internally for $1,300 right now. 8-bit and 10-bit internally, and it uses, it has log footage. So you do get Panasonic's log footage with this. 10-bit 422 external. If I would say that this is probably an amazing camera for somebody who's focusing more on video. There's a lot of these cameras feel like more like stills cameras with video features. The GH5 is not. The GH5 just feels like it's built for video. So consider that. You get tons of different video recording options, all native. It's gotten a ton of updates as far as their firmware goes for its autofocus system. So it's actually gotten better with age. And I mean that's kind of how these cameras should be. They should get better and better and better and better until they're replaced by a successor. And that's exactly what's happening here. The GH5 has just gotten better, and it's still got tons of life in it. And at $1,300, you could buy 2 of these before you bought like a Canon R6. That's saying something. Continuous shooting, 12 frames a second at 20 megapixels. So that's pretty good too. I personally don't consider the GH5 as I don't look at it as a photography camera, but it's capable. It's definitely capable. So if you've got the money, I would say if I was going to rank these like advanced camera deals so far, I think the RP is the best value. I think you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck. For $1,000, you're getting a lens and a full frame camera. And anytime I can have full frame, I'm a sucker for full frame. So I would choose that. But if you're a video shooter alone, the GH5 deal right now, that's second to none in my opinion. So not a knock against the Fuji X-T3 there. It's a great deal too. But I just think if you're video, go with the GH5. It's reliable. It's tried and true in so many different situations. All right, we're going to try one more camera here, and then we're going to call it quits for this video. And we're going to take a look at the Sony A7R IV. So now we're getting into the most expensive camera on my list as far as the sales go. All right, so now we're going to get into the Sony a7R IV. The Sony a7R IV is a great camera, and it is definitely a photographer's camera. It's a photographer's dream camera. The a7R IV has 61 megapixels. So that tells you right away that this thing can produce images of just insane resolution. So if you're a photographer, or if you're trying to move up from kind of a middle ground, and you're in the Sony system, or you are interested in switching to the Sony system, the a7R IV is a photographer's dream camera, in my opinion. I mean, there's better cameras out there, but at the price, you're getting $500 off, and it's less than $3,000. So you're paying $3,000. It's still super expensive, but if you're trying to get into the pro world, the a7R IV is a great way to do it. It does shoot 4K video as well. I think up to 30 frames. It's not going to topple anything else that we've talked about. I mean, there's a lot of cameras that are significantly cheaper that we just mentioned, including the GH5, that it has better video recording modes than this. It does have, I believe, S-Log, and I mean, it shoots 8-bit externally, so that tells you right away. I mean, it can't even shoot 8-bit S-Log internally, but you know, still, it's a photographer's camera first. So if you're interested in some high resolution photos, 10 FPS per second, for up to 68 frames at 61 megapixels, dang snap, that's good. So yeah, $500 off the Sony a7R IV. That's a good deal. So those are my picks as far as I think the best deals out there for mirrorless cameras and DSLRs if you're trying to get into video or photography. Some I think are better than others. I think that the Canon M6 in the budget realm is a great deal. I think if you're really trying to stay super cheap, the XT-200, I mean, there was an unbeatable price on that one at what, $499 with a lens and everything. So yeah, if you want to get into Fuji XT-200 at the budget level, if you want to get into Canon at the budget level, M50, if you can swing the extra cash, go for the M6 Mark II. Once you get into the $900 range to $1,000, the Canon RP or the Panasonic GH5. And then if you're looking for those high resolution photos, if you can swing the money, the Sony a7R IV is going to be awesome for photography. If you're looking for something a little bit cheaper, but that's great for photography, but also going to have some video features, but you don't mind it being a DSLR, Canon 5D Mark IV. But that's going to do it for this video. So hopefully you found this helpful. Hopefully you can get out there and snag some of these deals. I'll try and get all this stuff in the description down below, so that way you can find them without having to keep searching and hunting like I was. So that's going to do it. And if you like this video, found it helpful or mildly entertaining, go ahead and smash that like button, click subscribe for more videos like this, and have a happy Thanksgiving. Later.